Kim, no changes to the agenda, right?
I don't think so.
Okay. It sounds like we're live, so I'm going to go ahead and call this to order. This is the regular meeting of the Manassas Park Governing Body for February 3rd. Miraculously, we have no changes to the agenda. So, Governing Body's pleasure on approval of the agenda as presented, making note that I believe in the closed meeting we have 2 items under subparagraph 1 on personnel.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Could we rise for a moment of silence, please? And then, Brian, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our next item is citizens' time. Do we have any citizens signed up who'd like to address the governing body tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on. Our first item is recognition. This is the law enforcement accreditation presentation. I'd like to recognize Chief Louis Battle from Warrenton. Chief Battle.
Mayor Jones, council members, good evening. If I can have City Manager Kim Alexander and Chief John Evans please approach. Pleasure to be battled by to meet you. Curse of middle age. My name is Lou Battle, and I'm one of the commissioners of the Professional Standards Commission, as well as the chief of the Warrenton Police Department. We're here tonight to recognize the Manassas Park Police Department for their commitment to law enforcement excellence, as evidenced by their successful completion of the certification process of the Virginia Law Enforcement Accreditation Program, this being their 4th award. The pursuit of accredited status by a law enforcement agency is a voluntary process. It is a commitment on the part of the agency's chief executive and the members of the department that they will serve their community beyond the minimal requirements established by state law. The department is critically judged by its peers, who not only know what is required to comply with the standards, but who also bring to the table the knowledge and expertise to evaluate an organization's policies and practices. The result is a comprehensive and fair assessment of an agency and a final recommendation as to whether it should be approved to receive accreditation from the Commission. Chief John Evans and the members of the Manassas Park Police Department have successfully met those standards. We congratulate them on their accomplishment and are proud to present them with their certificate of accreditation from the Virginia Law Enforcement Professional Standards Commission. Now, that's what I'm supposed to say. But on a more personal note, I have sat next to Chief Evans as a member of the commission for over a year now. I've watched police departments come and go. I've been a member of law enforcement for 35 years. I started in Miami-Dade Police. I was down there for 27 years before coming to Warrenton for the last 8. I know what a good police department and good leadership is all about. John is superb. He's somebody that I would emulate if I was new coming onto a department. He's someone that I would want leading me. You have an exceptional police department that's well led, it's disciplined, and it's professional. And it always starts from the top and it filters down. Leadership is the hardest thing to come by in law enforcement. You know, when these young guys come on, they're aggressive and they're hard chargers and they make a lot of mistakes. Mm-hmm. And it's leadership that kind of channels that energy and makes good, productive law enforcement officers out of them. So again, on behalf of the commission, congratulations. It's a pleasure. And I guess you want this, right?
Yes, sir. We will definitely take that.
I want to recognize a few of the folks who were a little instrumental in that, John.
I do, sir. I'd like to take a few minutes. I want to thank the governing body and the city managers for your support. Without your support, we can't do this. And then I want to recognize the department. I would like to bring all 43 men and women up here before you because they're all important part of what we accomplish every day. But there's 4 people I'd like to recognize tonight. 3 of them are here tonight. And I'd like them to come up and stand in front here. The first one's going to be Lieutenant Melissa Borman, who is our accreditation manager. And then her assistant is Gina Ludvigson.
Chief Evans, do you want to bring them to the front?
Sure. And then
Alyssa and our newest recruit, right?
Division Chief Karen Barton is not here with us tonight, but she's another member of this team. And last but not least, our commander of our professional standards and our investigative services division, Captain Mario Lugo. These folks are the ones that really did an outstanding job to get us to this point again. And personally, I'd like to thank them for that. And
All I can say is, well done. 4 consecutive accreditations. I can remember when we first considered even attempting the accreditation standard, and to have now moved forward to this be the 4th consecutive one. I can't say congratulations enough and well done. It speaks well for the agency, and it speaks well for the team. Chief, well done on the leadership. Mario, even if you did blind me with that solar shot, that lunar shot there, we'll leave it alone. But congratulations all.
Okay, everybody just look this way.
try to smile.
Well,
Cheese.
Say, Manassas Park rocks.
If you want to thank Chief Battle, helping us out tonight.
Lou, thank you for taking time to come and be with us tonight. We really appreciate it, and thanks for the presentation.
Thank you.
It's good to see you again. Next up is the requested follow-up. When we approved the hub zone a year ago, we asked that SSI come back and after a year give us an update and talk about where they were. I will tell you that Steve Mackey is not with us tonight. He is down hard with a stomach bug. So in his stead is Dennis Lutero. Dennis, you're up.
I'm asking Kim to pass around my card. Those of you that were here last time got one, but you'll notice there are a couple of differences on this one as it comes around. One's the address, and you'll see in my presentation, SSI, in part of the process of moving to Manassas Park, has also moved our headquarters here. I'm going to give a quick refresher for those that were here on Hub Zone for the new member, also just to catch you up on what exactly Hub Zone is, and as the mayor mentioned, status of where we stand a year almost to the day later. Quick agenda, go down through a refresher, status, and I'll talk about SSI's service to the community so far, and then entertain any questions or discussion. And again, I thank you for your time. I know it's precious, and I'll try and be as quick as possible, but I won't rush if you do have questions. SSI, again, is a IT services firm, primarily government contracting, founded by Steve Mackey back in 2007. Our biggest customers are in the Department of Defense and now also Department of State. As you see, we are now headquartered in Manassas Park. When we get down into what a hub zone actually is, the requirement is that you have your principal office in a hub zone. The headquarters is just a Benny, and it was something Steve wanted to do once we established what is our first physical office. There are the mug shots. Mr. Mackey again is probably not smiling quite as much as that right now, so we wish him well. So what is a hub zone? Hub zone stands for Historically Underutilized Business Zone. There are areas that are designated by either census data or other data from various agencies. The biggest indicators are if you have a low median income or high unemployment rate. And it's not necessarily a city, it can be a county, and you'll see the different designations as we go down. But the Small Business Administration tries to build business then through this program by attracting companies into these areas, which will then bring jobs to areas and then bring up those indicators. So the Small Business Administration does run this program. I think I've covered most of this. Promotes economic growth, benefits for Manassas Park. Again, more jobs, more tax revenue. Very similar for us as a company. The idea is we bring more jobs into the company through the hub zone preferences that we get through the Small Business Administration. That can either be a set-aside contract for hub zone companies, which we still have to compete for, but we're competing in a smaller pool. And then also that increases our revenue, which feeds back into the taxes here for the city. Again, I mentioned census data. You see also HUD data, BLS, Department of Interior, Indian Affairs. This is another piece of it too, the reservations. And then some of the Department of Defense data determine what tracts of land are actually hub zones. SBA does not have discretion when it comes to designating hub zones. So they can't decide, they don't go have a meeting and say, well, let's pick this area. So there's no political wranglings of who gets one and who doesn't. It's all objective. So here are the 5 different types of designations. Manassas Park is actually a qualified census tract. So again, those key indicators, median income and unemployment rates dictate. And you'll see a map here in a second. I think most of you know that it's not the entire Manassas Park city boundaries. It's everything that's west of Route 28. So here's the map. Again, I like to affectionately refer to Manassas Park as a bow tie. It's the left half of the bow tie. And again, which was the original part of the city. So as a company, SSI made this determination a little over a year ago that we wanted to pursue this designation. So how do you do it? Any company can do it. You have to be a small business. That's the first part. Your ownership has to be at least 51% U.S. citizen. And then principal office has to be located in a hub zone, and 35% of all your employees, not just the ones that work in the hub zone, but for the entire company, have to live in a hub zone. Now, it doesn't have to be the same hub zone as where the principal office is. And so you'll see, in fact, when we get to some of our data, you'll see that we have some folks that aren't from Manassas Park that are working in our headquarters across the way. Principal office, it's not, a lot of times you'll think principal office is the same as a headquarters office, but it's not. For this definition, the principal office is where the most of your employees work. So if you have 5 offices, your principal office is the one that's got the most employees. What's excluded from that are if you have folks working on site at a government facility or some other customer site. So you could have 1,000 people working downtown in a government building, and then 100 working in your principal office, and that's still your principal office because those people are excluded from that calculation. Definition of employees, anybody that works 40 hours a month, so part-time employees up to full-time. If you're under 40 hours, then those people don't count towards a calculation, and that's the 35% calculation. So for SSI, our status, again, February, almost to the day, we began the process, began hiring folks here in Manassas Park, and opened the office. We were temporarily in the community center for the first couple months before we actually moved into the what we refer to as the Stone House. I'm not sure if you guys have another term for it here, but we always say we're going to the Stone House, or so that happened. April, we actually applied for Hub Zone certification. That 2-month lag is something any company is going to face because you have to actually have payroll records for 2 months to send to the Small Business Administration to prove that you're actually fulfilling the requirements of the program. And then July, which was pretty quick turnaround, 90 days, we actually received our certification from the SBA. So that was great. Before that, we'd heard horror stories coming into this saying, oh, it's going to take you over a year. Sit back and, twiddle your thumbs for a while, but we were pretty aggressive in making sure we were hitting all the milestones and had a project plan in place, and so that was the fruits of that labor. Please slow me down if I'm going too quickly, but I'll just keep rolling. So what has SSI done since we've come to Manassas Park? This is some highlights of some of the things that we've done. I'm also going to interrupt myself, but I brought with me a couple of our employees, Marvin Chavez and Halima Gonzalez. They both work, and you'll hear a little bit more about them. I've told them they don't have to speak, so...
He lied. You're going to get up and talk.
So we moved in the stone house. I won't say we gutted it, but we pretty much took it up from the studs, new carpet, new paint, and you'll see another list here. We did move the headquarters, even though that wasn't a requirement of the program, to Manassas Park, and that's a physical move. We actually had to take the files out of Mr. Mackey's basement, which was our headquarters at the time, and move them into the stone house. You see 16 new jobs, and I'll give you some details on that. And we stood up, as we had talked last year, Career Resource Center, which is a no-fee computer assistance to Manassas Park. We don't turn anybody away, but we're right there in Costello Park, and it's anybody that comes through. And the traffic has been picking up, hasn't it, Marvin? We are working with the high school, participating in their work-study program. We have a number of students that are working in the CRC. Not all of them are taking advantage of that, but a lot of them it's because they're already seniors. They have a very low class load, and so they get early release anyway. And so they've already met their requirements. But it is there, and we do have a couple that are taking advantage of that. Provided training assistance to 30 folks here in the area, and we're working on this. That last one is an in progress. We're trying to work with the Central Library, and we have a number of our students that are bilingual, a number of our staff actually, and so we're trying to partner with them, and they've got an overflow. They don't have the staff to handle all the need that they have coming in the door, and so we're going to try and work with them to offer that. So the next couple slides are going to get into some of these details. Again, improvements to the stone house, flooring, paint. The windows in the basement had been boarded up, I'm sure for security, but now that we have people in there every day of the week, we put new windows in to bring some light in there and some fresh air. Security system, a couple other repairs, put some things in to make things a little bit more habitable in that sense. You can see the cost there at the bottom, that's just for those kind of items there. It doesn't count the furniture and the network equipment that we brought in, but just to give you a snapshot. Employees, again, I mentioned last time, and it's held true. Most of our folks are part-time. We do have one full-time person working there. And again, this is I went into detail about this last year. This is really a community project for SSI. This is all overhead. These people are not paid for in any way other than through our normal company overhead. So Mr. Mackey's stepped out in faith to do this. You can see the hours worked. Those numbers actually work out and put on the slide, but it's about $100,000 in labor costs for 2014. That's what that represents. Of those, I think in those numbers, the Manassas Park numbers, we have 8 actual high school students. Again, most of those are our customer service representatives. They're the ones that are actually providing the service to anybody that walks in the door, whether it's, hey, I need to set up an email. I don't know how to set up an email address. I don't know how to do a search on the internet. I'm looking for something, a relative, a job. I need to know how to store documents online because I don't have access to, or I want to have a wider access to what I have at any kiosk that I might sit down at. So these are the folks that do that. I'll give you some more details about what the CSR is doing and the rest of the staff. Here's the Career Resource Center, the service offerings we have. This is a pretty representative list. Again, as I mentioned, a one-on-one interactive for whatever somebody walks in. If somebody walks in and asks for something and we don't do it, we're keeping track of those kinds of requests so that we can, we're flexible enough that we can add those kind of services. As long as someone's not coming in and asking us to write them a program, write me a computer program that does this. Now, maybe in a couple of years we get to that point, but right now it's basic computer skills. Steve ran the first of the job seeker seminars back in December, and the intent is to do that again here in the next couple of months. It's basically a 6-part series, an hour and a half at a shot on, one, why are you looking for a job? What's behind all that? How do you write a resume? How do you network to find the jobs? How do you do an interview? And that's something that we'll continue to run. Language training is something we just added. I haven't really tested it yet. We had an open house last month, and we're giving away basically free access to Rosetta Stone in the office, so people can come in and sit down and do that training. So I'll let you know how that goes next time around. And then we're also, as part of our startup process, we became a certified testing center for Certiport. And so in that, we're now also offering test proctoring services. Because again, apparently there's a need. People from either the community college or some of the online universities say, hey, I need somebody to officially proctor my test. Mm-hmm. And so this is something that we're investigating. So anybody that comes through the door, that's part of our staff here, they're all getting this kind of hands-on workforce and workplace training. Just the general, how do you dress, how do you provide a customer service, how do you greet people at the door, how do you answer the phone, how do you interact with folks that come in. For the customer service reps, they actually are also put through a training program to learn and get certification in and as a Microsoft Office specialist. So that's Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook. And most of these are, again, mostly the high schoolers. Excuse me. Marvin was the first one to cross that threshold. He is a certified Microsoft Office specialist, and that goes right on his resume. He walks out of the door, graduating high school.
Is that the MCP certification?
It's not. It's separate from MCP. MCP focuses more on operating system level training. This is specifically to the Microsoft Office suite, so they can take you through the intricacies of Microsoft Word.
Are you looking at more like CCNA, MCP, A+?
That's down the road. The thought is, we intentionally targeted the high school students. We said, here are the tech-savvy next generation. They have a base set of skills of working with a computer. There are other groups within the community who have never had that exposure. So let's put them together and transfer that knowledge. But as we find, and I'll talk a little bit about this, again, Halima's our first example of this, but as we find folks that we bring in to our program, we always have a long view of how do we take them and put them to work on one of our government contracts. And part of that is going to be a training program. Some folks want to be an IT professional. Some folks say, no, I'm going to go and be a nurse. So when we identify those individuals, we can work with them and help grow into those higher level technical certifications. So a couple testimonials from students, our staff, and I'll drop a dime on Marvin. That's not his quote, but that is his picture up in the upper left-hand corner. When we pulled cable into the building, they were hands-on, learning how to terminate Cat5 cable and build out that infrastructure. So that was a lot of fun and a good experience for them. I'm not going to read through those. You can read them while they're up there, but the gist of it is, especially for the high schoolers, they're coming in, most of them haven't had a work experience before, and we're putting them right into a customer service role, and it's paying dividends already. While you read that, I'll tell you Halima's story. Halima's one of our receptionists in the building, and we actually have a government contract that we've bid, and we're now putting Halima through her clearance process, security clearance, for government security clearance. We win that contract, then she's top of the list of our candidates for working on that contract, full-time government contract. And again, if you work with federal government and clearances, you understand the value of that to a company and to an individual. So we hope to do more of that.
And she's a resident?
Halima's here in Manassas Park, yeah. So I think that's my last slide. Apologize if I did go too quickly, but I'd entertain any questions or discussions. And again, I thank you for having me here this evening.
I
Have any
appreciate
questions?
Sorry.
Jeanette?
Yes, yeah, thank you very much. Do all of the employees meet the 40 hours a month?
They do.
All the 16 employees?
Yep.
They do?
Yep, and we have to track that rigorously.
Yeah, yeah. The hours that you quote, what is the time period that those hours represent?
We started back in February. There was a ramp up of hiring from February through July, I guess. And then if you take that 35% requirement to maintain your hub zone status, as our company grows, we're always looking for, on our government contracts, we're looking for people that live in a hub zone to hire them. But as an IT firm, it's oftentimes difficult to find those folks. So if we hire somebody, say at our Ashburn facility, we've got to turn around and hire somebody that lives here on overhead to support the office. So I'm trying to remember what the original question was. The staff continues to grow. We added a new hub zone employee in the last couple weeks. Jose came on board. We are adding another Ashburn person on our government contract on Thursday, and have added a couple in the last month or so. And so we have to, again, hire another hub zone person. So that's a continuing changing number. So there wasn't a point at which we said, okay, we've got 16 employees, and then go forward from there.
So 16, if you hired someone in Ashburn, did you say, now they were not a hub zone person?
Correct.
They were not. So 16 does not represent your total employees?
No, I'm sorry. Our company right now is about 34, 35 employees.
34. What hours do the non-hub zone people work?
They're full-time employees.
They are full-time. Okay. So let's see, what are the numbers then? So there's 16 hub zone employees.
Right. So we have 17 plus 3, another 20. Some of those are overhead folks, myself included. And then we have 17, starting Thursday, we'll have 17 direct labor folks working on government contracts in various places.
Okay, so that's 17 non-hub zone. Now that does not include yourself.
Right. So there's myself, Mr. Mackey, April Duncan's our HR director. None of
Okay.
us live in a hub zone.
So that would be 20, did you say? 20. And all of those folks work they're full-time?
Right.
So they're 40 hours a week?
The HR director is part-time right now.
Okay, okay. How do you recruit Manassas Park residents?
Various methods. We've worked with the high school, and initially we were getting direct recommendations from Ms. Reynolds, who runs their work-study program. We've done Craigslist ads, believe it or not. We did a postcard mailer out, just saying, hey, we're hiring, out to all the hub zone residents. And then we post open positions, including the ones for the CRC, on our website.
Can you provide a copy of the presentation?
Certainly, yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Thank you, thank you.
Any other questions? Preston?
First, thank you, and if you can pass on to Mr. Mackey, thank you for bringing your business to Manassas Park. And I mean, I've seen already you have grown and really picked up with this program. My question is, in terms of working with the schools, if you thought about getting involved with STEM a little bit, or some of the IT programs that they have at the high school?
We have, in fact, Mr. Mackey went to, I forget what the event was. There was something last year where he was one of like 3 or 4 companies that came and presented and talked to students.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, that's about it. I'm sure you guys are going to pick up as your programs continue on.
Right, it's a steady growth curve. You know, we're not looking at gangbusters because, again, we want to make sure that we're growing the rest of the company
Right.
in step and in a supportable and scalable way.
Thank you.
Who else?
My question was, I'm still not clear. How many Manassas Park employees do you have?
People that actually, I think I had it on one of the slides here, people that actually live in Manassas Park.
Correct.
Was it 13?
It's 13, 8 high school students.
And those 13 people, all of them work 40-hour weeks?
40, the part-timers are 10 hours a week, so 40 hours a month.
Okay, so the requirement for the hub zone is 40 hours a month, not 40 hours per week?
Correct.
Okay. Because my question was basically those numbers were not adding up to the hours worked, so that's what I was trying to understand. So now, all of these 13 employees, are they actually in the Stone House, working from the Stone House?
They are. Again, the high schoolers are, rotating at various points throughout the week. Some work 2 5-hour days. Some do 2 hours every day, depending on what their schedule is. And they cover pretty much 9 to 4. The receptionists are on a little bit different schedule. We have an office manager and an assistant office manager, and they sit there every day.
So one last question which I had is, I think it was there in the earlier slide, I think you got your hub zone approved sometime in July of last year, correct?
Correct.
So how long is the status valid till?
It's a 3-year, but it's checked every 3 years. The hub zone, again, is tied to the location wherever your principal office is. So our hub zone certification is as good as Manassas Park is still in a hub zone tract. So best case scenario for Manassas Park is that everything grows to the point where you come out of that status. But that's usually done on a 10-year basis, although there are they do some checking each year to say, okay, does it still make sense to have Manassas Park as a hub zone tract? But usually it's about 10 years. And then if SBA says, nope, it's time to remove this tract or this county from hub zone status, then there's usually a 3-year redesignation period. So again, as a company, I have 3 years to figure out, do I want to try to maintain a hub zone status? If I do I need to find another area to move my principal office to?
Okay. Well, thank you so much, for coming and explaining. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Any other questions?
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I'm finding it difficult to compare apples with apples and oranges with oranges. Do you know what the number of hours worked for the Manassas Park folks for the month of December?
I don't have that number off the top of my head.
Because I calculated for 19 full-time non-hub zone people would be $760 a week or 3,040 hours a month. So that's why I'm asking, what are the hub zone people working that would be commensurate, that could be compared with that number?
So if you take the 14 of those employees are 10 hours a week. So you take 14 times 40 for the month.
10.
That'll get you close. And then the other two, the office manager and the assistant office manager, One's full-time, the other one is about 25 hours a week, so that's 100. So 100 plus 168, 260 plus 14 times 40. How quick I am on my feet here.
820.
Someone's got a calculator?
I got 820.
So the 820, you just calculated the hub zone folks, the 13 hub zone folks,
16 total.
the 16 hub zone folks. How about the 13 Manassas Park hub zone people?
12 times 40, so get you to 480.
4,800.
Plus another 100, that's 580. 580 a month.
580. So Manassas Park people are only getting 580 hours. 13 people, 580 hours. Why so little?
I'm not sure how to answer the question. Let me try though. They are part-time staff.
Mhm.
And to maintain the certification, we have to have a minimum of 40 a month per employee. They are overhead employees, which means we don't get any money from them. They're not working for any pay or any cost from any service they're providing. And so as a company, we can grow that staff, and we can even grow some of the hours in a case-by-case situation, but only as the company grows and has overhead dollars to spend on that labor that's not being paid for anywhere else.
Do you intend to move these people to full-time employment?
If the opportunity presents itself, again, like in Halima's case, where she's currently one of those 10 hours a week people. We win this contract that we've been on, and she gets her clearance, then she would go on that contract full-time.
Okay.
Again, if you take a long view and look at especially the high school students, their training starting into an IT field, I will say that help desk position, which is probably the entry-level position, Tier 1 help desk, most of those require 2 years of college, associate's degree. It's rare nowadays that you'll find something less than that. So there is a training process. But again, it's an opportunity for us to groom folks that we find that have a desire to do that and show an aptitude, and help them grow with the company.
I will make the comment. I mean, I've talked to the high school students that last week at the three parent community meetings we had, and they like opportunities to shadow and to extern, to get a taste of what a certain industry or business is like. And so I think you've hired, 50% of your employees are high school students. It gives them that opportunity that they're seeking.
Absolutely.
So I'd look forward to seeing more students, and this is just your first year, so I know the sky's the limits.
Yeah, and you saw from those comments too, it was just a snapshot of that, but they do. They're like, their eyes are opened really to what's the broader world.
Right.
I don't have to go and get a job at Starbucks. I love Starbucks, but that doesn't have to be your stopping point. There are other fields, other careers, and things that they just hadn't thought about or didn't even know existed.
Right. And you're planting a seed for them that later on they can just go back and pursue that interest. So thank you.
I just want to say I appreciate the opportunity that you've opened it up to our schools, and I want to commend both of you. And you're very young to get a clearance, and that's going to help you get a middle-class job, move ahead. So just stick with it. I was in the same position about 15 years ago. Stick with it. Just follow through, and you'll be able to be very successful. And I appreciate what you do with the students here at Manassas Park. So just follow through, and you can do it. And I'm really happy to hear that both of you are involved.
Suhas.
Sorry, I'm going to come back to this question. So those 13 employees, Manassas Park employees, who work for the hub zone 40 hours per month, what is their average compensation per hour?
I'd be happy to share with you that afterwards.
Okay.
Separately, but I can share that with you.
Sure, that's fine. I can understand, and if you want to share that, I'm okay with that. But I do want to know about it.
I think what he's saying is an item of privacy.
Right. I understand.
Okay. Any other questions? Dennis, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for the
I think it's important that the community understand that this is not a business that started with a view toward it's going to come in and make money immediately, bang, bang, bang. It took a long view, and it is looking to grow the folks in our community who need an opportunity. And we have a classic example in what was just brought forward in terms of what it means to get through the training and then to get a clearance and then to move forward. So to see the long haul approaches, I find very pleasing, and I want to say thanks to SSI. We'll move on. Consent agenda is our next item. It consists of approval of minutes for January 20th. Public Works purchase of vehicles. This is the ratification from the action we talked about at our last meeting. And then Jeanette Rischel's reappointment to the UOSA Board for 4 years. Governing body's pleasure, and I assume you still want to
Yes,
to serve.
I abstain on the minutes.
As do I.
So we have 2 abstentions on the minutes. Governing body's pleasure on approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. All's in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions noted with the 2 for the minutes. On to unfinished business, the written policy for meeting participation, 2.2-3708.1.
Yes, sir. I revised this based upon the comments I received the last time it was presented. I sent it out to you, and it's available in the packet showing the comparison. Shows the changes made. Briefly, for the emergency or personal matter, my understanding was that you wanted that to be something that would be brought to the governing body, but something that was for the temporary or permanent disability or other medical condition would be something that would be automatically approved upon the reading of it by the mayor or the vice mayor or whoever the chairman is. So a couple of those comments were made, or the changes were made for that, to reflect that. You'll see that in, let's see, 1C and then 2B. And then on Section 3, it was specific requirements, which were ones that I understand you had requested. I moved things around a little bit to try and make it a little bit make more sense, but basically what would happen is that before you vote on the agenda, if there was a request for remote participation, the chairman of the meeting would go ahead and state that. And like I said, if it was for a personal reason or an emergency, then it would be voted upon. If it was for a medical condition or a temporary disability or permanent disability, it would be automatic unless there were one of the members of the governing body wanted to make an issue of it, and then it would have to be voted on. Let's see. We I put an additional requirement in there based upon comments I received via email that made it clear that each member is responsible for making sure that whatever their electronic communications mechanism is, that it's working. So the governing body is not responsible for that. The state code requires the governing body to make sure that the voice of the member using remote participation is heard by everybody in the primary meeting place. But as far as the mechanism used or the technology used, and whether or not that it's up and running at the appointed time, that's up to the member requesting remote participation. And then also just pointed out that the rules of the meeting still apply whether you're here or remotely participating, meaning that you have to get the mayor's recognition before you can speak. You can't talk over each other, and if for some reason the communication went down, the meeting would not be held up waiting for it to get reestablished. It would move on, or unless, of course, it was critical for that person. The rest of the members here, of course, could vote at that time to come back to it later. Let's see. The identification of the remote location, there was some concern about how to identify it. I pretty much left it up, just has to be reasonably specific. So, for instance, if you didn't want to have your house address, you could just say that, ex-governing body member is remotely participating via telephone from his or her residence, and the residence is on file, so that should be sufficient. Or if you're in the hospital, the name of the hospital, or a hotel on the road, the name of the hotel. And I think that is it. The only other change was just moving it down to the bottom, that the policy must be applied strictly and uniformly without exception. That is based upon, again, the enabling legislation. So, are there any questions? I'd be happy to answer them.
Yeah, one of the questions which Dean we had asked is to reach out the FOIA board and ask them, if they had put together any kind of template or any document regarding remote participation. Did you get any information on that?
I looked at it. They basically just copied the enabling legislation verbatim. I mean, it was both they and VML. I'm trying to make this somewhat usable. If you look at the state code that enables this, it's somewhat confusing. It's kind of hard to parse through initially. And they did a noble effort, but I don't think they did a good job, as good of a job as I've tried to do here to make it very clear what you can and can't do. But the code is what the code is. It basically says what you can do. You can take that language and just, put the locality's name or the organization's name in there, or you can try to make some sense of it. I tried to make a little sense of it, but we can certainly go and just pull it down exactly as it's written in the state code, which I don't think is user-friendly.
And what about, are there any other localities which have a remote participation policy?
Well, I will tell you, the response that Kim got was from Mark Flynn. He said he thought others had done it. There was a request through the Local Government Association attorneys that requested anyone who has a remote participation policy just the other day. Nobody responded, so I don't know if they have. I responded and said that we had one that we put together that's up for a vote tonight. I'd be happy to share with her, if it gets approved, but I didn't see anyone else responding, so I can't speak to that. But that's the way local government attorneys communicate through this message board, and I didn't see any responses.
So we really don't know.
Well, we don't know, but except Mark Flynn, who represents the Treasurers Association and is very active in local government, said that he believed that some had or many had. I forget the exact language, but he indicated he thought others had. And then clearly, like I said, VML and the FOIA Council have both put out their form model policies, if you will. But again, it's something that's allowed by the state code. It's not something I'm concerned about us getting challenged on. It's pretty straightforward what you can and can't do. It's you cannot be more liberal as far as the reasons that you're allowed, but you can apply additional requirements. So, for instance, the requirements we put in there that the member has to make sure that the remote participation is working. Well, that's kind of understood when you read the state code, but it's not stated. It's also understood that you can't call in for a closed meeting, but it's kind of something that's understood, but we state it in here. So I think we put stuff in here to make it clear and unambiguous, whereas the state code enabling legislation is somewhat ambiguous as far as what's specified, and it's just assumed that you'll understand that there are other areas of the state code that don't allow you to do certain things.
What's your pleasure? You want to go ahead and approve this, or leave it on the table?
Just one quick question. What about being at a hard location? That's something you were going to look at as possibility. I don't think we want to have a policy where someone's driving and they're calling in.
Well, I didn't put it in there because you had voiced that concern and no one contradicted you. So I just assumed that it was the consensus that being on the phone wasn't a big deal. But we left it alone because now if you choose to allow someone to do it, then when the location would just be in his car, on Route 99 heading to Richmond or something, or 95 heading to Richmond.
I wouldn't want anyone driving, calling into a meeting. I just don't feel it's safe. I don't think it'd be a good policy to have someone do that. I don't know. I just don't feel.
Well, I don't think we have to put it in the policy though, because this is something that is you can put in the policy if you want, but it's as a policy, as your policy, you could always amend the policy.
So what you said is the identification of remote location for which a member participated in a meeting must be described in the minutes with reasonable specificity. A physical address, the name of a hotel, etc.
Right.
It doesn't call out so that we don't get caught up in other issues of safety. That was the part of the
Right.
concern.
And we didn't get any, I didn't get any specific direction from the governing body, and I wasn't trying to presume that I knew what each of you were thinking, so I just left it out. Unless there was clear guidance from you, I just left it the way it was.
What do you want to do?
I'm gonna make a motion to approve the written policy as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Other discussion? Hearing none. All's in favor say aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Are we ready to implement? Is my only question. Are we ready to implement?
Yeah,
guess so.
we've fleshed out the details.
Yes.
We're ready to go.
I think Brian's question is
phone?
more the technology, and I think the answer is it's the spider phone that would come in here through the jack. So it would be one of those deals where we would have to prepare in advance so that we'd make sure that the right connection was here.
That's ready to go.
And then as far as making sure everyone could hear it, we could just stick it where, microphone, we could stick it right here and just.
Yeah,
have
by
Landon's
Lana's
mic.
desk,
Yeah. And if someone chose to do it, say, be via Skype or something like that, we just have to go ahead and make sure we had it set up over here. It wouldn't be that
I
difficult.
think the phone, if it's a Polycom with the microphone, will run interference, but anyway, we can try that. I think it'll interfere with the frequency, so.
Well, we used to allow people to call in,
Right.
and ask questions of the governing body, and I don't know if we had the phone physically here or not, but we have in the past had governing body members, at least one that I'm aware of, that was traveling and wanted to listen in.
Right.
And so we set up a phone that they couldn't participate, but at least listen.
All right, on to new business. 8A for Public Works, purchase of salt for streets.
This is a request for an additional appropriation to restock the de-icing salts. The price has gone up and there's not enough money to cover the restock there, so we're asking for an additional $15,183.
So is the request for appropriations of funds, or is it just,
It's a request for an appropriation of
so this
of
is above and
funds
beyond what was
and-
budgeted?
Well, it would be and the purchase, because it's over 10,000, so we would need your approval for the purchase and the additional appropriation.
So this is above and beyond what was budgeted?
Yes,
Okay.
15,000 above.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second, and to be clear, the amount of the procurement is $21,507. The additionally appropriated amount is $15,183.
Correct.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Public Works project update.
What we did is, you'll see on your desk, there's, I think it's 3 or 4 different documents.
Yeah.
Large document is a, like a project tracker for not only the streets projects, but it's water, sewer, virtually a lot of the different things, buildings and grounds that goes through there. As best I could, I put in projected dates of completions. The Berkeley group, Drew Williams, has been working with us, and actually, I tried to anticipate some questions that y'all may ask, and that's the letters on top where he's sending a letter back to me. I posed some questions, and he reiterated time schedules, and he answered all 3 questions, in case y'all had any questions about that. Also, there's a summary of the VDOT flow chart, and then on the 2 main projects, the safe routes and on the Euclid, you will see there's some smaller spreadsheets that he has put together with some time schedules on them. One of them is running concurrently, and the other one is running separately. He's not available this evening, and I think this was in preparation for the
This was in preparation for the meeting that we're going to be having with the school board and the
On the
planning commission on the 24th. So if you guys have detailed questions about the safe routes or the Euclid Manassas intersection project, I would request that you hold those until that meeting, so
Or
that we can
email.
give you.
Email ahead.
I was going to say, rather than trying to go into this tonight, because this is a lot of information for us to try to look at, I'm going to ask the governing body to let's take a look at this, address your detailed questions to Kim and to Jay, and they'll be prepared to answer any of those questions as we go into that joint session.
And just to, a little update, Drew and myself, we're having a meeting, I believe it's the 11th with VDOT, and prior to the 24th meeting, we'll have another meeting with VDOT.
So there's two things that I'm interested in. One is I'm interested in the any questions you have about the plan, but two, I'm interested in the adequacy of the information. So I know you had sent out a list of things that you'd like to see. This is first cut. I want to make sure that we're looking at the kinds of things that folks would like to see.
Not only that, Mayor, in the letter that says draft across it, the one that I had Drew, those are 3 questions that I anticipated that y'all may ask, and so I wanted a third party to answer the questions, and he did. And in fact, one of them he went into a lot more detail, but what it does is give people an education on the process, because I think there's some misunderstanding, especially when federal money's involved. It's as you will, when you get a chance, when you read through there, you will understand that it's a long process through there. So that's what I'm asking you to do, is review the information. If you got any questions or comments, email Kim and I, and then what we'll do is get with, I'll be getting with Drew, and then we can get back to you on some of them, and then we're trying to get in preparation for the, like I say, I believe it's the 24th meeting.
Just a question about the information.
Yeah.
What's the difference between these two?
Okay, one of them is, that's what I was going to say, is one of them is if you take the 2 projects and run them concurrently.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one is you're running them separate.
The one that was on top is the one that shows where it says safe routes to school, and then at the very far right, 2016, and it ends in March.
Right.
That one, those 2 sheets show if you handle each of those projects separate from each other.
Okay.
The next 2 that were on the bottom, you'll notice on the far right-hand side, it shows 2016, and then the last column is, the month is blank, and at the bottom it says complete in December.
Right.
That is if the 2 projects were done
Concurrent.
together.
And the reason
The 2 projects are Euclid and Safe Routes.
Yes.
Correct.
Euclid Interchange, Euclid Manassas Drive Interchange, and Safe Routes.
Correct.
The 2 that we talked about at the last
And
meeting.
just to give you a little insight on that, I asked Drew to prepare those the 2 different ways, because both of them support each other. If we did the safe routes by themselves, then we'd be dumping kids into the streets, and they wouldn't have a sidewalk to go on to up to Euclid, and they'd be going through a construction zone. And there is a possibly, Drew and I have talked about it, if we do these projects together, we may get and I've done it in the past, we've done alternates, bid on 1, bid on 2, or the combination, and that way you sometimes get a better price, and then the project is completed at once, and it's safer for everybody.
Okay?
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jay.
So, I had a question, and first I want to express my displeasure. This project, Jay, for whatever reason, it's been 3 years, this project has continuously gotten delayed. It doesn't make me happy that, now this project is slated, to until, mid of 2016. So, that is the portion which I'm really not happy. So I would like to hold somebody accountable, whether it is, the contractor who was developing this particular plan, or, people, whether it is in VDOT or within our Manassas Park staff who didn't get onto this project. Somebody needs to be held accountable for us, because we applied for this grant 3 years ago. It was approved, the governing body funded the projects, and then it just hasn't happened. And now finally we get to see this, and it's not going to be built until 2016. That just makes me really angry.
And that's why that I have presented the question. I presume that.
But it doesn't answer who's going to be held accountable.
No, but it says right here The brief summary of the process requires for transportation projects with federal aid from conception to construction contract award may be 43 to 61 months. That's up to 5 years.
Okay.
That was not what was informed from the very beginning. You know, like
I
when
know,
we-
but that's why I had these. That's why I had and I asked you to read it. There's 3 specific questions because I knew that someone would ask that. That's why I had Drew with Berkeley Group answer the questions instead of it coming from staff. The time frames on these things, because it's all these things. Yes, it's a long time, but that's what he came up with by his experience. So. I totally agree with you, but please read the what's included, because he's given us his, by experience, what projects, how long they take to go from beginning to end.
Coming back to the next question which I have is, we have always assumed that, you know, the Safe Routes to School project is on the west side of the Euclid Avenue, which is why, you know, like, I mean, we always keep talking about, you know, like when relocating the utilities and, you know, it interfering with, you know, like when the Euclid Drive, you know, Manassas Drive and Euclid, you know, like an expansion project, right? So what if, you know, like when we construct, you know, like when the sidewalk to schools on the east side of Euclid Drive? Have you considered that?
That would, the improvements on the Manassas Drive, Euclid improvements are on both sides, all 4 corners of the road.
So let me ask, you know,
The
so
whole intersection, and actually.
whole intersection, that's fine, but
all
what
the way
if, you
down to
know, like,
Blues Quarry Lane, and then about halfway up to Connor Drive.
okay, but can this project, you know, like, can it be expedited if we had to construct the sidewalk on the east side of Euclid Drive?
You still go to the same, first, there is no federal money, it was not appropriated for that side of the road, and then you have the same problem that you enter back into the Euclid intersection, which is going to be under construction.
I think okay.
Yeah, the whole intersection, all 4 legs of Euclid are going to be under construction.
Because the money, it's defined, it's narrowly defined, it has to be near the school, not on the.
No,
other
it could be on,
side.
if that was what was in the original.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, I can check to see if it could switch, but switching it to the other side, you would, to me right now, all you do is lengthen the project. Because you'd have to get, now you'd have to
Have
start.
to do the design over.
Huh?
You'd have to do the design.
Not only
over.
design over with, but then you would be dealing with different property owners. And then that's, because we go down to, and I want to call it Owens Court, as soon as we go 1 lot deeper, we're on school property.
Yeah.
That's what y'all did the easements for, I guess, 2 or 3 weeks ago. I forget when it was. If we go on the other side, we're not on school property. We're on private property. Then we'd have to have another crosswalk to get back over to this other side.
And the car stays up through, that's dangerous, that's creating another hazard, just, you know, that's creating another hazard.
And there is no existing pedestrian PEDs for crossing at the existing Euclid intersection and Manassas Drive right now.
I see.
And I've seen many of students or people that are crossing, they go mid-block between Sandstone and Euclid, and that's when they cross the road down through there, so. But that's why all this information is for you to review and take a look at it. And I'm sure you're going to have more questions. These are just 3 of them. One of them was scheduled that you just proposed, Sue Hoss. And then the other was the 2 schedules there, either simultaneous or separate. And then the last one, it was about the funding, because there's been some question about funding on there. And like, that's why I had Berkeley Group put this together, so it's not coming from me or my people, that about the time it takes, and that's why the flow chart's there.
And they'll be here on the 24th. There'll also be representatives from VDOT here, so we'll be able to answer your questions a lot in much more depth on that day. And if you do have anything in advance that we can have them start thinking about and preparing answers for, that would be helpful.
And 2, we were meeting, like I was saying, we have a meeting, Stu's got one scheduled for February 11th with VDOT also. We'll have before the meeting here on the 24th.
So I'm going to ask from the perspective of making sure we have the right opportunity for people to get, if we have questions, the right question to the right person. If we could plan to have the questions submitted the week before, so they've got time to work whatever the answers are, so that'll give us a couple weeks to chew through this. But let's plan on, if the meeting's the 24th, not later than the 17th, having questions answered, or questions in, please.
And I would ask if you have any questions ahead of that, because we will be meeting the 11th. So if you have any before the 11th, you could fire them
Any
off.
immediate questions, go ahead and get in now.
I'd say
Got
just streamline them, because one question may generate another question.
Or an answer may generate more questions.
Yes, sir.
Right. And Whitman Record was the sole firm that was doing the designing, right? That was the.
Yes.
That's my only question.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Virginia American Water, the petition infrastructure service charge.
Let me get my notes.
Hang on just a second. Before you guys go, we've had some scouts with us tonight, and I was going to wait till we got through the business section, but with your permission, I'm going to take just a pause. Let's recognize the scouts that are with us tonight and what they're doing. So come on up. The Scoutmasters, if you want to do an intro real quick, please feel free to do so for who the troop is and what they're doing here tonight.
Turn around and face the cameras.
You see the little things with the blue lights on hanging on the wall? That's what you guys want to face. And you need to flip that mic around so you can talk into it.
All right, we are Troop 1362, and we're here tonight for our Citizenship in the Community merit badge to see how local governance works and operates in their own town. So.
All right.
We do appreciate your time, and apologize if we do have to take these boys.
No,
shortly.
Looking at the clock, we understand. Don't want to get in the way of school hours and
Budget
whatnot.
time, you could have really.
There is one other requirement that they do have to fulfill, and that is to ask, and a lot of the details that have been presented so far has kind of answered that, but if there is an overarching concern within the community and what the local city is doing to help alleviate that concern.
Well, let's pick on the one that we just got done talking about. It's called Safe Routes to School, and it is a sidewalk that is planned to go from the intersection of Manassas Drive and essentially Euclid down parallel to Euclid. So our students that live in close proximity will have a safe opportunity to walk to school. We've been working to try to get this thing done for the better part of 3 years now. It's caught up in the major overhaul that has to go on at that same intersection, and that's a very busy intersection. It's the intersection that handles at least half the traffic for Osborne Park High School, plus our own school, plus Connor Business Center. So we got to do it right, but we got to do it in a way that we get it done also. And it is of concern because we have folks who are walking back into the school. They're walking on the unfinished fringe of a road right now. And if you go down the edge of Manassas Drive, you'll see that there's not much there. So they either walk in the grass or they're walking in a riprap base, which is supportive of drainage, or in some cases, kids are actually walking in the street, and we can't have that. So that is a major concern of ours, to get that sidewalk in, gets kids off the roadbed, away from the roadbed, and gives a clear, safe corridor up to Manassas Drive from the high school, middle school complex. Wonderful. Any comments anybody else wants to make?
Sure. How many of you guys had Christmas? Raise your hand. All right, look at that. It's like waiting for Christmas for 3 years, except for from a safety perspective. So that's why my colleague, Mr. Nadoni, expressed his, him being upset because he's been waiting for Christmas for 3 years. And he's like, where's the sidewalk? And we need sidewalks. We all use sidewalks, right, to ride bikes and walk on and even run on.
How many of you guys are middle schoolers?
Right.
The middle school for us is going to be supported by this sidewalk. So if you had chosen to walk to school, this would have been the safe way for you to be able to walk when we get it built. Unfortunately, it isn't built yet, and that's what we're trying to push for.
Yeah. That's fine. Oh, you got a question?
Yes, sir.
How much money will it cost?
Good question.
Jay?
It's 1 point.
Excuse me, I think the last estimate was right, a little bit less than $1 million.
So that's a big Christmas.
So call it $1 million.
That's quite a bit for a sidewalk.
You're right.
Good job. You're absolutely right.
You're
Why is it so much?
You're right
Jay?
about that.
That's
We
a
don't
good
know why
question.
it's
Why
like
is it
that.
so much?
I mean, couldn't you get a bike path or have students ride public transportation to school?
They do ride public transportation today. They're called school buses.
Yeah.
So we do have that service. A bike path, if you're doing it in the roadbed, still has to meet the same kinds of criteria that a sidewalk has to meet. And the funny thing about this is, we have the Virginia Department of Transportation, which says here are the standards by which we have to build a sidewalk. It's not far different than the same criteria in terms of distance and planning and intersection and so forth that you'd have if we were building a road, if we were building a highway. But the difference is, and part of what makes this expensive is, it's the length also. And in fact, the improvements that we're having to do to the side of the road before we can put the sidewalk in, because the side of the road's in,
They had to put gutters and drainage.
thank you, yeah.
It's where we're putting it. It's very tough terrain, and that's why it's so expensive. So.
Yes, sir.
How many accidents have there been between Manassas Drive and Euclid of, like, just cars? Like, do you know how many accidents there have been?
Over the last year,
Yeah, and how it could have been.
Mario?
How it could have been a factor to.
Safely to say something less than 20 probably on Manassas Drive.
That's a good number.
So something less than 20, most of them not moving at high speed. The car accidents would not have been impacted by the sidewalk because these are people, for the most part, who are Manassas Drive and somebody pulls out and you get a T-bone. Good questions. Any other? Okay, guys, anytime you've got questions or anytime you'd like to come back and visit with us, we'd like to invite you to do so. If there's something we can do to answer questions, get in touch with our city clerk, and we're happy to have, if you want to meet independently to talk, any of us would be happy to meet with you and talk with you, answer questions, so don't hesitate to reach out and touch, okay?
Thank you. Good.
We're happy to have you with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
So wait, one last question. Who's troop leader? Okay, and what level scout?
I'm a star.
Okay. So everybody's planning to go all the way to Life and then Eagle, is that right?
All right.
Okay. All right, we're going to keep an eye.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good night.
Those are good questions.
Good questions.
They're cute.
Sure,
Caught
it's a
you
lot
off
of money
guard.
for a sidewalk like here, absolutely.
Our relief is sitting there somewhere in that group.
Caught you off guard on that one.
Okay, over to you, ma'am.
They're so cute. Okay, American Water has filed a petition with the Virginia State Corporation Commission to establish a water and wastewater infrastructure service charge. Although the SCC has the ability to approve rate increases requested by American Water, in my mind, creating a new service charge is different from approving an increase in an already existing rate structure. The SCC is an unelected body. If the SCC permits the creation of this service charge, then it would in essence bypass elected representatives by allowing an unelected body to create a service charge. We don't even know if this request is justified, so I think it might be helpful to take it in the context of some other data. In 2008, the American Water requested a 24.9% increase in Alexandria rates. In 2010, they requested a 22.4% increase in Alexandria rates. In 2012, they requested an overall 15.93 increase and a 12.2 increase specifically in Alexandria rates. Now, Alexandria staff determined that American Water's rate of return for the previous year was 7.87%. The revenue increase requested by American Water would have given them a rate of return of 11.3%. So that would have boosted their profits by 3.5%. Alexandria staff noted, and here is the memorandum, if you wanted to pass it down. Alexandria staff determined that American Water's rate of return that they had hired a consultant to calculate the rate of return, and staff felt that the consultant used risk factors to calculate the rate of return that were not really applicable to Alexandria. For example, one of the risk factors was demand uncertainty. And they felt that was especially unrelated to Alexandria because Alexandria's water use has continued to rise over the years with development and commercial and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they felt that staff felt that their residents were being asked to pay for an uncertainty, for example, for Hopewell.
Thank you.
That instead of their own uncertainty, which did not exist, they felt that they were being asked to pay for Hopewell. So the comment period to the SCC ends March 3rd, and I request that the governing body oppose the request to create a service charge with a letter or a resolution.
Discussion?
I support what you recommended, Jeanette. I mean, I see a potential future increase in this new fee that they're trying to acquire. I know that besides Alexandria that they also are in charge of the water system in Dale City. But that's a heck of an experience just listening to the increases and the profit that they're making.
Other comments? So then if I can suggest that you make a motion by resolution that we oppose on the basis of undocumented fiscal impact or unaccounted for fiscal impact and what appears to be pure profiteering is, I'm paraphrasing, but I think that's what you've said.
Right. Well, that and there's a certain degree of uncertainty as to whether an unelected body can do that type of thing.
So maybe that ought to be the lead-in.
I see a difference between raising an already existing rate and setting up a new service charge.
So perhaps we need to oppose it on two counts. One is
Right.
the rate itself. Two is the ability of the body, an unelected body, to approve.
And to include for a product and service that's a necessity for the citizens. So, you know, they have no choice in this.
Okay?
Okay.
So
Move resolution be sent to the SCC from the governing body regarding our opposition to the creation of a service charge that was requested by Virginia American Water.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Could I, would it be all right if we developed the resolution and then emailed it out to you guys just for a second
Yes.
tacit approval?
That's what
before
we would
send
need to
it?
do, and then, given the email routing, then once we get approval, I'll go ahead and sign.
Okay.
Okay.
But the vote is tonight to go ahead and approve by resolution our opposition. And I would, the friendly amendment, I would suggest it is the rate, but it also, the second part of that should be the ability of a non-elected entity to go ahead and establish a rate that could impact things across the Commonwealth. So I think that ought to be part two of it. You agree with that?
Exactly.
Okay, then that's a friendly amendment to her motion. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all's in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you for that breakdown.
Thank you very much. Okay, on to city manager for city manager update.
All the stuff I have for you is closed session.
Okay. Then, city attorney?
I recommend that the governing body go into closed meeting to discuss two matters involving the assignment and performance of specific public officers, employees of the city, and to consult with the city attorney regarding a legal matter requiring the provision of legal advice by the city attorney pursuant to paragraphs 1 and 7 of subsection 2.2-3711A of the Code of Virginia.
Governing body's pleasure on going into closed meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. In discussion? Hearing none, all's in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Anybody want a bio break before we go into closed meeting?
Comfort break.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute comfort break and we'll convene in here in 5 minutes in closed meeting.
Just like.
Lan, if you'd go ahead and shut down the audio visuals, please.